Okay, so I've made 3 of my folders. Oh, well, actually, I folded this one the wrong way. Let me just fold this way, which is fine. Okay, and put the papers back in. Okay, so I have my 3 file folder tabs right here, and I've got my 3, there's a 1/8 of an inch gusset with each one of these. I think you can see that, and that's even with the 5 pages. I'm doing 5 pages, that's 20 fronts and backs in each file folder, which is going to get sewn in. And then we're going to do other things to our file folders. But this is just the beginning of the book, and there's 3 of those, and this being an 1/8 of an inch, so that's 1, 2, that's 3/8 of an inch right there. So I'm going to make 3 more of these, and then we'll be ready. So let me go through what we do here. So I have 3 more sheets of paper that I'm going to use, and this is the outside. I'm going to do this as the outside, and I'm going to do this as the outside, I think. Yeah, I think those will look nice. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is cut off the graphic 45 bit on there. And I'm going to do it off camera. You don't need to see me cutting that off. Just going to get that top off of there, so it's nice and straight, which isn't always easy because your paper isn't always square. If you've ever noticed that when you go to cut it and it's not square, it's very irritating. Okay, so I have made all of my folders. I'll get one of these pulled back here and show you what I'm talking about. I have made all of my folders where they line up this way, okay? So that's what I'm going to continue doing. You figure out what's going to work best for you. And the same with the inside, you know, all of the writing, of course that one doesn't matter, but everything's kind of going up and down this way. So that's what you need to make note of. If it's not that big a deal to you, then don't worry about it. But if I want all of them to be exactly the same, then when I cut it, the way it's looking here when I cut this at 8.5 is going to be make it like these guys. Okay. Ooh, sorry. Let me see if I pull this down. Okay. Okay, so I'm setting this up at 8.5, and that's going to be the width of our folder. Cut that down, and yeah, and then move this off to the side. We're going to get this little puppy. Now again, this is something that if you don't have, you can do all kinds of things in order to make these little file bumps. You can just get a file folder and mark it, trace over it, and cut it out. However you want to do it. How to make these is when you're looking at this here, for the left and middle, I'm going to line up with this side of this little opening right here. You can see that opening. So it's going to be lined up right along this inside edge. For the right hand side one, it's going to be, I'm trying to find it, it's going to be to the right hand side edge, okay? But for both the left and middle tab, it goes against this inside edge here. Is the first place that we're lining up to cut. So I'm lining up my paper right at that very inside edge, making sure my paper is all the way up against this and right in that spot where I told you, and we're going to cut. Okay, now I'm going to move this edge to 2 3/4. 2 3/4. Okay, making sure that the page is all the way up, and I'm going to push again. Okay, so then that's it for that. And then back in with my paper trimmer. And I am going to, this little dip right here is going to be moved up. I've got it on this guide, and I'm just sliding it forward until it lands where this little groove meets right in with the groove where the cutter goes, where this blade goes. And that way I can just cut off the excess. And then what I do, oops, sorry, moved it. Okay, making sure it's all against this. I take my blade and I stick it in there. And you see I've got that little bit of play in there, in between the two. And then I cut the rest off. Okay, and that gives me my tab that I want. Okay, and then this little bit is thrown away. So there's that. Now we're putting this into the scoreboard, and let's see if I can get this where you can see it. I'm going to move this, sorry, moving the camera. There we go. Okay. So now I want this to be flush. Now this is obviously got nothing here, but this can get flush in, and this all the way to the edge. And then I'm going to take my score tool and I'm going to go at 7.5. Again, one more time, I'm not pushing heavy. And then 7 5/8, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/8, okay? And again, I'm not pushing heavy. Then I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to put it flush here, and flush all across here, and do it again. Not pushing hard, and I'm just going to kind of run it through once on the 7.5 and 7 5/8. Okay, now, let's see. Well, okay, so doing the left and the right just depends on which one you're going to want on the outside. I want this on the outside, not on the inside. So you can do both the left and the right, just making sure that whatever you cut is facing the right way, the way that you want it. Okay, so that makes it easier. So I'm going to make sure my edges here are lining up, and I'm just kind of finger brushing. I'm not even pushing it all the way down to my, you know, really hard. I'm just kind of finger pressing. And see, it's still wanting to pop up, so I'm not like putting a huge push on that. Then I'm just going to push my hand down and hold the paper, hold this kind of down, and I'm just going to pull. And I get that where it pops up on that 1/8 of an inch. And I'm just going to kind of finger press that 1/8 of an inch score mark ever so slightly. And that makes it want to do just what it's doing. And I'm not creasing hard on the paper. which that's the way I like it. I don't like the really heavy creases when I'm going to be sewing these in. And then I'm taking my coffee dyed paper and I'm putting 5 in. That's going to give me 20 front and backs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and this took me all day to do this. You know, it takes me 3 or 4 hours because I don't have a big space, so I have to let them dry. And then there's that one. Now, so I know I have my right tab for this one, so I'm going to need my middle and my left tab. So let's go through this again. Now note, this one's going to be my center. I'm going to cut off the end tab here, the sales tab. I want it to go this way. That's how I want the file folder to be oriented. And I'm going to cut this off at 8.5. And I'm actually going all the way past the line because I want to get a full 8.5. And I'm just going to cut that off. Okay. So now we're going to put this off to the side. We're going to get the envelope folder out again. And this time we're going to measure the paper over to 2 3/4. Alright, and we're going to push, again making sure that this is all the way flush, all the way across, and that this is on the 2 3/4 mark. Okay, and then we're going to push. And then we're going to center this dip into the 2 3/4 mark. Making sure it's flush all the way to the paper. Make sure this lower end of the dip is centered at the 2 3/4 mark, and push. And that gives you your center tab. And now we're going to cut this side and this side off. Okay, so this is kind of a back and forth deal. Now if you wanted to, while you still had these, you could go ahead and get your scoring done at 7.5 and 7 5/8. Flip it over, 7.5 and 7 5/8. Okay, so now I'm going to bring my cutting board back in here. I'm going to make sure I've got it flush all the way down here along this guide, and I'm going to slide it in until it is right at the edge of where the guide is that my blade goes. I'm going to bring my blade down to that area, and I'm going to make sure it's fitting in there, and I'm going to cut that side off. I'm going to bring it back over here, make sure it's fitting in that area, and cut this side off. And there's my center tab. I've already made my score lines. This is my outside, so I'm going to come over here, feeling for my score lines. Again, I want to make sure my paper's straight, but I'm not really pushing down hard. I'm going to hold this part of the paper with the bottom of my hand, pull this piece with my fingers, and hold the paper down so that it's not going to, yeah, so it's just kind of giving that little bend in there. And I'm just going to pop this over ever so slightly, not pushing all the way. And there I have a nice crease. Okay, it's going to keep its shape, but yet it's not, as I said before, not squished all the way down and bone foldered across and that kind of thing. I'm going to take my 5 sheets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I got to coffee stain these because this is really not made for pictures. So the coffee staining is okay to do at that point. If you're going to use these as photo albums, which you totally can, you want to leave these white and not stain them in the coffee stains. Now maybe you could use, you know, like a Tattered Angels or something like that. See, because this is an acid-free thing, so you could totally stain them that way, but just not like a coffee and tea stain. Okay, so now I have my right, my center, and now I want my left. So we're going to have to really kind of focus on what we do here. I'm going to, dropping my papers, I'm going to cut off this little section. There we go. This doesn't truly matter that much, but to me this is kind of an up and down. This is definitely an up and down, so this is the way I want it to be for when I cut my 8.5. Put it on 8.5 and give it a cut. There we go. Okay, so now is when we're really going to have to think about what we're doing. I want this to be the outside. So I'm going to flip this over because this is the inside, and I'm looking to make my left one. So I'm going to line this up. If I was going to make my right one, I would just line it up with the inside corner, just like I had done, you know, showed you in the beginning. But since I want to make the left side, I'm going to start it on this way. Make sure it's flush all the way to the top here, and make sure it's lined up on the inside, not past it, just right to it, on the inside of this cutting spot. Let me see if I can lift it up just the way it is without moving it so you can see. Oh, I don't know if I can do this. There. Did it move? Nope. It's right where it needs to be. Okay? Alright, so that's cut like that. Now I'm going to move it so it is lined up with the 2 3/4 mark, and we're going to push again. And there we go. Okay, now I'm going to line this up on my cutter. Flush here against this and push it right up to where the cutting blade fits in. Got a little bit of play, and cut the rest off. So I have my tab. And this is my outside, this is my inside, so that will give me my left tab. Now we're going to make my marks. Make sure everything is flush and straight. 7.5 and 7 5/8. Flip it over, and at least once on each. Okay. This is my inside. I'm going to find my first score marks. Make sure I'm lining up correctly and just give it a light squeeze. Hold. Pop up so it just catches beginning of the 1/8 of an inch. There we go. And we're done. Let me get my 5 papers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now you could totally, you see how these don't line up really? You could, if you wanted to, put this in and cut that all right off. It doesn't bother me. In fact, I kind of feel like it helps me get the pages turned if I'm playing with it myself. You know, building up to the center, and then after the center it works going down backwards. It just helps me turn the pages, so I'm leaving them. But if you want to, you can cut those off so that they're nice and even, if that floats your boat. So now we have all of our file folders ready. So you get to this point, and that's going to be a really cool looking book for her. But you get to this point and then come back and we will, I think we're ready. We're going to start sewing these suckers in and then we'll decorate. Okay? All right, guys. See you later. Bye.